So you decided to stay. Because of what was coming. The holiday you were going to take together, the place you were going to move to. The version of this relationship that was always just around the corner, always just a few months away, always just as soon as things settled down. You held on because the future they painted was so specific, so detailed, so convincing that leaving felt like walking out on something real. And here you are. Still waiting for a future that was never coming. I'm curious. How many of those plans actually happened? Not the ones that got postponed, the ones that actually, concretely, happened. Take your time. Because I'm going to guess the answer is somewhere between very few and none. And every time one fell through there was a reason. A good one, actually. Timing wasn't right, money was tight, things were complicated. And you, because you wanted this to work, because you could see how good it could be, you accepted it. You reset, you looked at the next thing on the horizon and you held on to that instead. That's not hope, that's how you were kept. Here's the thing, future faking isn't broken promises. Broken promises are accidental, this is deliberate. This is someone who understood that the present was unsustainable, that what they were giving you right now wasn't enough to make you stay, so they sold you the future instead. A future they had absolutely no intention of delivering, because delivery was never the point. But keeping you there was. And it worked. Every single time they dangled something new, it worked. Let's look at it a bit closer. Because future faking isn't wishful thinking. It isn't someone who gets excited and overpromises because they genuinely want things to be better. That's the version they need you to believe. The real version is colder, more calculated, and has been running on you since almost the beginning. Here's how the mechanism of it works. The present is bad. Not always dramatically bad, sometimes just quietly, consistently not enough. The affection is inconsistent, the respect is conditional, the relationship doesn't feel like what you were promised it would be. And at some point you start to pull back, you start asking questions, you start weighing up whether this is actually working. And right at that moment, right when your self-preservation starts clearing its throat, the future arrives. Suddenly there are plans, specific ones. A holiday with dates attached, a conversation about moving in together, a ring mentioned casually, like it's already decided. And your nervous system, exhausted from the present, hungry for something solid to hold on to, grabs it. Because finally something real. Oh, how convenient. The thing is, the future fake isn't random. It's deployed. It appears at the exact moment the present becomes too difficult to defend. It's a distraction dressed as a promise, look over there, at what we're going to be. So you stop looking at what we actually are right now. And it works because you want it to work. Because the version of this relationship that exists in the future they're describing is genuinely beautiful. It's everything you've been hoping for, it's the reason you got into this in the first place. But as a matter of fact, it's also completely fictional. If you only think about it as here's the part that should make you genuinely cold. The detail in those plans wasn't love, it was research. They learned what you wanted, a home, a future, stability, someone who chooses you, and they built a picture of it specific enough to feel real. Specific enough to feel worth waiting for. Specific enough to keep you exactly where they needed you while the present continued being exactly what it was. Look, the plan was never the plan and you were never the destination. You were just someone who needed a reason to stay, and they were very good at manufacturing one. You don't have to answer me, but answer yourself. How much of your actual life have you put on hold waiting for a future that kept moving? Not metaphorically, actually. Concretely. Decisions you didn't make because you were waiting to make them together. Opportunities you didn't take because the timing was almost right, just not yet, just wait a little longer. The job in the other city you turned down, the apartment you didn't take because you were supposed to be moving together soon. The friendships you let thin out because your future was going to look different and you were already mentally living in it. That future, the one that never came, you reorganized your entire life around it. Let me put it this way, aren't you glad you waited? Let's talk about your time first. Because that's the one that doesn't come back. Every month you stayed because of what was coming is a month that's gone. Every year you held on because the plan was so close, so nearly real, just needs a little more time, that's yours. That belonged to you, and it got spent financing a future that was always a moving target and never once an actual destination. Then there's what it did to your decision making. Because future faking doesn't just steal your time, it corrupts your judgment. When you're living with one eye on what's coming, you stop evaluating what's actually in front of you clearly. You excuse things you shouldn't excuse because they're temporary. We're almost there. Things will be different when we're in the new place, when things settle down, when the timing is better. You've been giving the present a pass it never earned because the future was supposed to fix it. Spoiler, the future was never going to fix anything. The future was the distraction from the fact that nothing was ever going to be fixed. And what about your own plans? The ones that were yours before this. The goals, the ambitions, the version of your life you were building before they came along with their bigger, shinier, more detailed version of what your future could look like together. Those got quietly shelved. Not dramatically, just gradually deprioritized, pushed back, made to feel smaller than the shared future you were both supposedly working toward. Except only one of you was actually invested in that future. And it wasn't them. Then there's your hope. And this is the cruelest cost of all. Because future faking doesn't just waste your time, it weaponizes your optimism. It takes the most generous part of you, the part that believes things can be better, that people can grow, that love is worth working for, and it uses that against you. Every time you chose to believe the next plan was real, that wasn't stupidity, that was your capacity for hope being systematically exploited. You didn't stay because you were naive, you stayed because you were human. And they knew exactly how to use that. What an absolute privilege it must be, to look someone in the eye, hand them a future you have no intention of building, and watch them rearrange their whole life around it. All right. Here they come. If you think about it, every explanation you've been holding on to that makes this feel less intentional, less cold, less like something that was done to you with full awareness and complete indifference. Let's go through them. Because not a single one of them is going to survive contact with the truth. Let's start with, but they genuinely meant it at the time. Did they? Did they genuinely mean the holiday that got canceled 3 times? Did they genuinely mean the moving in together conversation that resurfaced every time you got close to leaving? Did they genuinely mean every single plan that evaporated the moment the immediate crisis, meaning you almost walking out, was resolved? Because genuine intention doesn't have a pattern. And this has a pattern so consistent that you could set a calendar by it. Try harder. What about this one? But circumstances changed, it wasn't their fault. circumstances change once. Twice if life is particularly determined to be difficult. But every single time, every plan, every promise, every carefully constructed vision of the future, circumstances changed. Always at the exact moment delivery was required, and always with a perfectly reasonable explanation, always just convincingly enough to make you feel unreasonable for noticing. That's not bad luck, that's a system. And you've been living inside it. Another one is, but they talked about the future constantly, that has to mean something. Yes. Of course it means something. It means they were good at talking about it. Because talking about the future costs absolutely nothing, it requires zero commitment, zero follow-through, zero actual investment in the outcome. It's the cheapest currency in a relationship, and they spent it lavishly because they knew exactly what it bought them. Your patience, your loyalty, your willingness to stay. A round of applause for the sheer audacity of it, really. I feel like this one is your favorite, but some of the plans did happen. Could you tell me which ones? The small ones, the dinner, the weekend away, the minor things that cost little enough to actually deliver. Because here's the thing about future faking done well. It needs occasional proof of concept. The small plans happen just frequently enough to make the big ones feel plausible. Just enough to keep you believing, just enough to make you feel like you're being unreasonable when the big ones never materialize. That's not follow-through, that's bait. And the last one for now, but I really believed them. Of course you did. That was the entire point, as you were supposed to believe them. They built those plans specifically around the things you wanted most, they used your own dreams as the blueprint. And then they handed it back to you as a promise they never intended to keep. The only thing more calculated than that is the fact that they knew you'd blame yourself when it fell apart. And you did, didn't you? You've been living in a future that was built specifically to keep you from leaving the present. Every plan, every promise, every carefully detailed vision of what was coming, none of it was ever about the future. It was about right now. About keeping you invested, patient, and just hopeful enough to stay while the present continued being exactly what it was. Exactly what it always was. And here's what that means. Everything you waited for, every opportunity you passed on, every decision you postponed, every version of your own life you put on hold, you did that for something that was never real. Not because you were stupid, not because you were weak, but because someone looked you in the eye and used your own dreams as a leash. And that is one of the coldest things one human being can do to another. So where does that leave you right now? It leaves you here. With the real future, the actual one, the one that belongs to you, still intact. Still possible, still waiting for you to stop looking at the horizon they painted and start looking at your own. Because here's what's true. Every day you spent waiting for their future was a day you weren't building yours. And your future, the one that has nothing to do with them, the one they never factored into any of their plans, that future is still there. It didn't expire while you were waiting. It just got delayed by someone who needed you to be too distracted to notice it. Stop waiting, stop giving your patience to someone who used it as a resource and called it a relationship, stop measuring your life against a timeline they invented to keep you still. Your future isn't around the corner with them. It's right in front of you without them. The talk is over. The rest is yours.